it's up to him. He gave me that opportunity to fight him. It's only right that if that's what he want to do, I'll give it back to him. Outside of him, I was looking.
Well, the latest is, we signed and contracted to do a rematch, and that's what it is right now.
Do you know when it's going to be, when we can hear?
I don't got no date right now, but I know that's the next fight.
The rematch between Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. has been one of the most talked about events in boxing, especially after their first encounter in 2023, which saw Crawford decisively defeat Spence to become the undisputed welterweight champion after Crawford's dominant performance, where he stopped Spence in the 9th round. The world of boxing couldn't help but wonder what comes next for these two fighters. It's been more than a year since their first clash, but the possibility of a rematch is now more tantalizing than ever, and this time it could happen at a higher weight class. The weight was made even heavier when these two almost got into a brawl when they came face to face, with Spence making it clear that he's coming for revenge.
Yeah, and like I said before, it's in the contract, so it's not if I'm open to it or not. It's, what's in the contract, and Errol gave me an opportunity and a shot at becoming the first male boxer, undisputed, in any division in the 4-belt era, and I honor, that, and if he was to come to me or activate his...
The first fight was everything fans had hoped for and more. Crawford, as the underdog going into the bout, proved why he's considered one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. Spence, a fighter known for his grit and toughness, simply had no answers for Crawford's versatility and speed. The fight was a statement. Crawford's win not only established him as the best welterweight in the world, but also solidified his place among the greatest fighters of his generation. However, in the aftermath of the fight, a rematch was always on the cards, especially given Spence's refusal to accept the outcome and his belief that he could turn things around in a second bout.
But you gonna knock my first?
Because I don't want to personally, we talking about what we want to see. I don't want to see it. Because I know what it's going to look like. The same as it looked last time.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
Errol Spence wasn't the same.
What was wrong with him?
He looked slow. He looked he looked sluggish.
Why?
I can't tell you. I wasn't in camp.
At the division, he dominated for his entire career. All of a sudden, when it came time for this fight, he looked different. Why?
I wasn't in camp with him. I can't tell you. I don't know if his body finally broke down for being the one.
For Spence, the defeat was difficult to process. He'd come into the first fight as the favorite, having dominated the welterweight division for years. But despite being in great shape and possessing incredible power, he couldn't find a way to deal with Crawford's skill set. Many pointed to Spence's injuries prior to the fight, with reports suggesting that Spence had suffered from a torn retina and was struggling with the aftermath of a car accident in 2019. These issues didn't stop him from entering the ring, but the toll they took on his performance was evident. Spence has since claimed that he wasn't at his best and that he's made the necessary adjustments to make sure he's ready for the rematch.
I want to see Bud be great, but what better buffer to see if Bud's ready at 68 than the EJ rematch of 54 and 60? And how exciting would it be to watch Errol Spence he walks at 190. I'm 185 pounds right now. I'm 5'11". To think of me cutting
Now fast forward to 2025, and the rematch is just around the horizon, but there's a significant change in the air. Crawford, after bulking up significantly for a possible fight against Canelo Alvarez, is looking to move up in weight. This introduces a fresh dynamic to the rematch, as it could now take place in the junior middleweight division. Crawford's decision to move up isn't entirely surprising. He's been extremely disciplined in his weight management throughout his career, and at 35 years old, he's ready to test his body in a new weight class. Moving up to face Spence at 154 or any other weight could change the entire dynamic of the fight for Spence, who's naturally bigger and more comfortable at this weight. This could give him an advantage, but it also opens the door for a more exciting version of Crawford, one who will bring added power and more experience against larger opponents.
Sessions.
to get this fight done. He gave up a lot of money on his side to have this fight at 147. If you look at the contract, this is a sport of contracts. Chris, you know this. You have signed contracts. You have tried to get out of contracts. The winner gets to dictate the weight. The loser got to put the rematch clause.
One of the most compelling elements of the rematch is the renewed sense of confidence in both fighters. Spence, who has long been known for his relentless nature, has now admitted that he wasn't fully prepared for the challenges Crawford presented in their first fight. He's made it clear that he's been working tirelessly on his technique, his conditioning, and his overall game plan to avoid the same mistakes he made previously.
I feel as if, he would go back to the drawing board. He would come back stronger. He'll come back more hungrier, and he'll try to fix the things that, he needed to fix to make the fight look different in the second time than in the first time. I do believe that, but that's the only thing that I can actually.
Spence knows he has the power to hurt anyone in the division, but he also recognizes that Crawford's boxing IQ is on another level. To stand a chance in this rematch, Spence is focusing on tightening up his defense and making sure he can withstand Crawford's sharp counterpunching. His confidence is soaring, and he's fully convinced that he can beat Crawford in a rematch if he sticks to his game plan.
Spence, yo. I'm excited for this, man. It gives him a chance to hell out. Yo, in a Hill, Errol, Spence. Anybody.
On the other hand, Crawford is no stranger to confidence. After all, he's the one who proved himself in the first fight. For him, the rematch isn't about proving anything to the world. It's about continuing to build his legacy. Crawford has long been known for his composure in the ring and his ability to think several steps ahead of his opponents. This isn't a man who lets a victory go to his head. He's always looking for ways to improve, and he's fully aware that a second victory over Spence would elevate him to an even higher level, just like Canelo will. What's intriguing, however, is how moving up in weight will affect his performance. There's a risk that the extra weight could slow him down, but given his meticulous approach to training and his focus on getting the right balance of strength and speed, it's hard to imagine Crawford being anything less than prepared.
There's a couple of reasons why Terence Crawford is doing this. Terence Crawford wants to go after Canelo or Charlo because in reality, in his mind and in everybody else's mind except Errol Spence and Errol Spence Jr. fans, he beat Errol Spence more than convincingly, which is there's no need for rematches. There's
also the possibility that the rematch will bring an entirely different type of fight. Crawford's first win over Spence was a result of his ability to outbox Spence, picking him apart with precise shots while controlling the tempo of the fight. But with the bulking Crawford is doing for Canelo, things could change. Spence is used to fighting at a higher weight, and he has a reputation for being a much more physically imposing fighter at weights like 154. He has more muscle and bulk at junior middleweight, and his power could be even more of a factor in a potential rematch.
Has he exercised his immediate rematch clause?
I don't know if it's gonna be at 54 or 47, but I'm sure he's probably gonna push the weight up. But there's no gonna be no change in the decision. The performance still is gonna be.
For Crawford, adapting his style to a new weight class will be key. He's known for his fluidity and versatility, and it's those qualities that will allow him to continue to thrive even at a heavier weight. But there's no doubt that he'll have to be even sharper and more defensive-minded, especially as Spence will be looking to impose his will with his strength. The backdrop of this fight has also been shaped by the changing landscape of the welterweight division. As of 2025, the weight class is full of talent, but there's a sense that these two men are still at the top. The division is a little bit in flux with new contenders rising up, but it's clear that Crawford and Spence are still the names that everyone's focused on.
Right now, man, it's like feeling that's kind of hard to explain, being back on the U.S. soil and then coming in to some good wins When I was over there, I got some good wins before I left to go over there. I got the best win, in probably in history. So, I mean, feel good, man. So the rematch is gonna happen. Mark my words.
Jaron Boots Ennis with his raw talent and Virgil Ortiz Jr., who's been a rising star for years, are both waiting in the wings. However, neither has faced a test like Crawford or Spence, and until they do, they'll continue to play second fiddle to the established elite of the division. This is what makes the rematch between Crawford and Spence even more important. It's the fight that will determine the true ruler of the welterweight and junior middleweight divisions.
Errol Spence the rematch, but at 147. Now, there's a couple of reasons why Terence Crawford is doing this.
And Crawford. There's also the larger boxing scene to consider. Saudi Arabia's investment in the sport has reshaped how and where these kinds of fights happen. While there's always been significant money in boxing, the influx of funds into the sport has made it possible for fights like this one to be even bigger spectacles. Whether the rematch happens in the Middle East or another high-profile location, the backing of these new sources of wealth is only going to make the fight even bigger. This fight could very well be one of the biggest in recent memory, drawing fans from all over the world and bringing a level of excitement to boxing that has been missing for years.
When he didn't have to, he sacrificed some things. So, in my opinion, you gotta do what you gotta do. I think that 54 it's 7 pounds north, and it does make a difference. Errol Spence is an incredible fighter, and Crawford is too. If that's what Errol wants to do, to fight.
As of now, everything points toward a huge rematch. Both fighters are motivated, both are confident, and both are hungry for redemption or legacy. Moving up in weight is just another layer to this already interesting story. For Spence, it's a chance to put his loss behind him and prove he can still rule the terrain. Crawford is a fighter who has already achieved so much in his career, becoming undisputed in 2 separate weight classes, capturing titles at multiple divisions, and maintaining an undefeated record. Yet, as he moves into the later stages of his career, the criticism surrounding his resume, particularly from boxing fans and analysts, seems to continue. It's something Crawford has learned to live with, but now he's decided that it's time to chart his own course without worrying about anyone else's opinion.
I don't want to hear nothing about Terence Crawford and the word greatness after the news that just came out. Let me get this straight. You were the man that said, Errol, I gotta thank you. Errol say, why? Your response was, because this fight never would have happened if it wasn't for you. Now when it's your turn to do what Errol did for you, you playing boxing politics, talking about 147 or nothing. But you was the guy saying that it was hard for you to make it to 147, so yeah, you would want to fight at 154.
When Crawford first made the decision to move up to junior, middleweight, many expected him to chase the same path that brought him success in the past. Dominate a weight class, unify the belts, and establish himself as the man to beat. After all, that's been his career trajectory so far. At 135 lbs, he took the title but left the division before he could claim undisputed status. At 140 lbs, he didn't just win titles, he dominated, becoming the undisputed champion in a division where no one could touch him. And at 147 lbs, he made history again by becoming undisputed at welterweight, taking down a tough opponent in Errol Spence Jr. in their highly anticipated 2023 clash.
Terence Crawford, we'll start here, reportedly offers Spence the rematch at 147 and not 154. This has got people up in arms because you have the Spence contingent who says, you know what, our guy Spence made concessions to get this fight done. He gave up a lot of money on his side to have this fight at 147. If you look at the contract, this is a sport of contracts. Chris, you know this.
Given his recent success at welterweight, many speculated that Crawford's next logical move would be to try his hand at junior middleweight, capturing belts, unifying the division, and then defending his legacy. After all, a man of Crawford's skill set, versatility, and track record could make a real run at 154 lbs, but Crawford's view on the matter was different from the assumptions of the boxing world. When Crawford made his move to 154 lbs, many thought he was gearing up for another undisputed run. However, Crawford himself, in a candid interview, made it clear that he was not interested in staying in the junior middleweight division for long.
You're a people's champ. Yes. I have nothing but respect for you. The question I have is, Errol alluded to wanting a rematch clause, but he asked, would you do it at 154? Is that your call, or is that the promoter's call, and would you even think about moving up to 154 to fight him?
Okay, so first of all, I need you to say I'm a loser.
Let's go! I never say that.
He dismissed the idea of unifying 154 lbs, claiming that the division did not offer the type of legacy-making fights that he was seeking at all. Crawford said when asked if he intended to unify 154 lbs, "There are a lot of great fighters, but there are not a lot of legacy fights at 154. If I beat Bakram, they're going to say, 'Who is Bakram?' Fundora has already been knocked out." Crawford's comments might sound surprising to some, especially given the talent in the junior middleweight division. Fighters like Jermell Charlo, Jaron Boots Ennis, and Brian Castano have all made waves in the division, and a showdown with any of them would surely be a big deal in the sport.
Along my career, I've been criticized, and people have taken credit away from me just to try to diminish my accomplishments, just off of pure hate. So what would they be able to say with me going up 2 weight classes? If Canelo become undisputed again and I beat Canelo, what could they say? They'll say something, but yeah, they're gonna
But for Crawford, these matchups don't hold the same significance as other challenges he might face, while the likes of Bakram Martazaliev or Fundora could be worthy opponents. Crawford's assessment of the division suggests that he feels there's not enough star power or enough of a narrative to build to make him want to invest significant time in 154 lbs. The real reason behind Crawford's decision not to pursue legacy fights at 154 lies in his broader perspective on his career and the relentless criticism he's faced throughout his journey. Crawford has been one of the most criticized and underappreciated champions in boxing.
Just wanted to prove to the world that I was better than what they say I was, because given the fact that how great I looked against each opponent, they say, oh, well, he wasn't nothing, or he was this, he was that, because how talented I am.
Right.
So they didn't want to give me no credit because I passed all my tests with.
He's fought in a way that has made him one of the best in the sport, but fans and analysts have continuously doubted him, calling his opponents into question and criticizing his level of competition. No matter what he accomplished, there was always someone who found a reason to undermine him in some way. Crawford's frustration is rooted in that continual criticism, a sense that no matter what he does, he will never truly satisfy his detractors. Crawford's frustration, however, is not just about the criticism, it's about the legacy he wants to leave behind.
My accomplishment just to boost him up. I'm like, dude, you're not gonna do that, because I can retire right now and be in the Hall of Fame. He couldn't. Everything that I've accomplished, he's still trying to accomplish. I don't want to sound like I'm hating on him. I honestly don't know if he make it to the Hall of Fame with the accolade.
The welterweight division in particular has been a hotbed of talent over the last few years, and Crawford has proven time and time again that he is the best in the division. However, there's something about the junior middleweight division that doesn't seem to excite him. Yes, he would be a great fighter at 154 lbs, but he doesn't see the same potential for a legacy-building journey there. While some would argue that the challenges of 154 lbs could have been just the test Crawford needed, he's now setting his sights higher, and his ambitions are clear. Crawford has stated that after considering his options, the only fight that truly excites him in the coming years is a challenge at 168 lbs against none other than Canelo Alvarez.
Canelo Alvarez thinks you're not a 54-pounder. In other words, you say, nah, he's too small.
That's his take. There's a reason why Israel was so respectful in the fight. Anytime I let my hands go, he either grab me or move. For the bigger guy, you should have been walking me down. You should have been bullying me. Canelo can say what he say.
He just doesn't feel like you're a 50.
The move to 168 pounds, in many ways, could be the fight that elevates Crawford's legacy to a whole new level. Canelo, who has long been regarded as one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, presents a challenge that Crawford can't resist. For Crawford, this is the fight that has the potential to solidify his legacy. A bout that would cap off his career with a victory over the most well-known figure in the sport today. "I don't see a lot of legacy fights at 154, Crawford told Cigar Talk. But when it comes to Canelo, that's the fight I want. That's the fight I've been wanting for a long time, and I'm going to make it happen. If I handle him, then that's how I'll solidify my legacy."
Talk all the crazy stuff about me going up and having a tough time, but he went up in weight and lost. That's the difference. I went up weight and won. He went up and lost. You know, so let's not.
It's clear that Crawford has reached a point in his career where he is no longer concerned with the opinions of critics. He's not going to go after fights just to appease people or to prove something to the naysayers. Instead, he's focused on what truly matters to him, making the fights that mean the most to his legacy. Crawford is no longer motivated by the same things that pushed him earlier in his career. It's not about titles. It's about proving that he is the best, and for him, that means taking on Canelo in a fight that will not only challenge him, but will also be the defining moment of his career.
No Triple G on Bud's resume. There's no Trout on Bud's resume. There's no Daniel Jacobs on Bud's resume. Canelo is the one that's fought the elite level opposition. It's Canelo that fought Laura. There is no Laura on Bud's resume. There is no Laura on Bud's resume. Bud has never faced a multiple division champ. Bud has never faced a multiple division champ.
Yeah, but Bud is an elite boxer.
So you're an elite boxer, but you haven't fought elite boxers.
But you haven't fought elite boxers. When Crawford moves up to face Canelo at 168 lbs, it will be a huge risk. Canelo is a massive figure in boxing, and his experience at super middleweight, along with his incredible skill set, makes him a daunting opponent for anyone. But this is the type of challenge Crawford thrives on. It's the kind of fight that can elevate him from being just another great fighter to a legendary figure in the sport. A win over Canelo would make Crawford a true household name, not just in boxing, but in the wider sports world.
I was shocked at one thing, which has me questioning now the outcome of this fight. Terence Bud Crawford in person was absolutely taller, which we know, but looked like a bigger man. He looked at least 10 or 20 pounds heavier. His frame was bigger. He has his head, like his skeletal structure, like he looked like a bigger dude. And it really made me be like, well, isn't that Canelo's only advantage in this fight?
But there's more to Crawford's decision than just the money and glory. His entire career has been marked by a relentless desire to push himself to the limit, and moving up to fight Canelo is the ultimate test at 168 pounds. Crawford will need to adjust his training, his diet, and his approach to the sport to compete at the highest level. But Crawford, who has always been willing to take on any challenge, isn't deterred by the size and strength advantage Canelo might have.